Hello everybody. So on my channel, I want to provide some pure alpha. So this time I'm going to talk about what's the likely next product from Michael Saylor and Strategy, because this interview dropped yesterday. It was shot on December 15, but the interview was made available to the public yesterday. So it's a 24-hour video. I listened to the entire thing. And this is the most tangible interview that I've seen in a while from Saylor, i.e. in 3 weeks. That's the latest and the most tangible interview we've had in 3 weeks. By the way, Jack Mallers should learn from Saylor. He's done dozens of interviews. We don't have any concrete idea of what we're going to do with 21. Saylor is giving us some very concrete stuff. So first of all, he assesses Stretch and the successes of Stretch. Stretch, he explains, is kind of the best they can do with TradFi finance and TradFi rails. And it's so much better than convertible bonds. It's so much better than the bond market. He explains how much he has developed a hate for the bond market. He explains how Stretch is the most they were able to strip down the vol. And he's talking about they got the vol down to 3%, maybe even 2%, right? Right now we're closing in on 2% vol. But it's possible that this stock trades at 98 periodically, especially in periods of market manipulation, market-wide sell-off, long periods of disbelief in Bitcoin. It's possible that we trade at 99 for like 6 months while Bitcoin goes up, and then when Bitcoin goes down, we could sit there at $98 for like 6 months or something. And I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think Bitcoin's going to bounce back, and I think it's going to get back to 99. But right now, the volatility has been stripped down to 2%. The volatility is not 0%. And that's a big issue for retirees. That's a big issue for people who don't believe in losing even a single penny, of which he's identified there's trillions of dollars worth of money, of deposits, of people who don't even stand to lose 1 penny, who don't even stand to lose 1 cent. It's irrational, but there's people who are not going to buy that because they don't want 100 to turn into 98. And so he explains how Stretch is the best he could do with monthly dividends. What's the next plan? Well, in that interview, he called Morgan Stanley and JPmorgan by name. He called both of these banks together by name. And we know he was on a New York bank tour last week. We know he was in a UAE bank tour 2 weeks ago, roughly. And he called them by name in this interview, which was just dropped yesterday. So he's even more explicit as to the plan. He explains that the future for Strategy is to create a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin with absolutely zero volatility. Not 2% volatility like Stretch, but absolutely zero volatility, paying something like a 6%, a 7%, a 8%. So he wants to go after bank deposits. He doesn't even want to go after people who buy money market funds or who buy bonds. He wants to go after pure bank deposits, right? The deposit of the common man. That's what he wants to go after. And to do that, he explains that he needs to partner with a forward-thinking bank, with a forward-thinking regulator. He needs to partner with a bank who's willing to provide a cash buffer, who's willing to act as a buffer for the remainder of a 2 to 3% redeemability. And so he needs to partner with a bank to create that special product that could be on banking rails. He called that product he called that instrument, that would be instrument that could be created, a disruptor of return-free risk. And return-free risk is what you get in a lot of money market accounts in Europe, for example, who pay 0.6%, 0.5%. In the US too, they pay very little. He calls it he calls this new instrument potentially a disruptor of return-free risk, because you could have a Bitcoin buy stablecoin that has zero volatility. So you would go after the retirees, you would go after a whole lot of people who are very, very conservative, probably with a bank seal of approval from JPmorgan or Morgan Stanley. And that would pay not 10% like Stretch, but more like 6 or 8%. And he's saying there's a competition to figure out which regulator is going to do it. He believes it's going to be either the USA or the UAE who's going to be the first to allow STRD to create that Bitcoin-backed stablecoin that would trade on banking rails. He called a whole list of countries, including Canada, Switzerland, European Union, Singapore. He called them impossible market for that because they're either moving too slow or they have too many protections in place that prevents innovation. He said the USA, of course, was on that list too, but there's been a 180 shift, and now the USA could see a regulator approve an instrument like this. So he's working with the banks to roll out a bank-based dollar that would provide a yield backed by Bitcoin and supported by Bitcoin. That's the next instrument, and that may explain why he's been raising $1 billion a week for the past 2 weeks, because he anticipates that instrument to be even in higher demand than Stretch. And in that case, you want to have as much Bitcoin on your balance sheet as much as possible to back a product that would actually trade at a 1-to-1 to $1 and that would actually have zero volatility. So that's the plan. Pretty impressed, actually, and pretty pleased by the tangibility of Saylor's interviews. We know exactly where he's headed. Anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe. Follow me on Patreon, follow me on X, and thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.